Hey everyone, we are outside, and I know that's a big departure from where we've been with the channel and fish keeping and wild type live bears, but I wanted to do a video and a new series on another passion of mine, which is hummingbird gardening. So I thought we would use the backdrop of this winter blooming salvia to kind of talk about the hobby, what is it, and some of the fun tips and tricks we can go over in the coming videos. I think we can talk about plant families that are great for hummingbirds. We can talk about zone pushing. We can talk about some of the tips and tricks for protecting your tender perennials and annuals during the winter. So there's a lot of fun stuff I think that we can discuss in the next coming videos. So if you're here and you're looking for fish keeping, I'll be having some videos for that as well, but I thought I would do something different. So I think there's really two main questions that you need to first look at for hummingbird gardening. Obviously, you want to be providing nectar during the periods that you have hummingbirds arriving in your yard. So if you're on the east coast of the US, you're going to be kind of dependent on when the migrating ruby-throated hummingbirds are arriving into your yard, and there's going to be varying times as they make their way up the east coast, and they'll also be leaving at certain times depending on how far north you are. And so that's something that's really fun, being able to build your yard so that you have maximum bloom over the period that you have hummingbirds in your yard. And here on the west coast, while I do have a few species that come through the yard, all year round I have Anna's hummingbirds. So I've built the yard based on around different plants that provide flowering in different windows, so that I kind of have a food source all year round. And these winter blooming salvias from Mexico, Central America, and even South America are really handy for providing flower in my winter. So this is the Oaxacan red sage, Salvia adenophora, and it's a big kind of herbaceous salvia that I really like. Has these long trailing trusses, and if you look at these, they have one of the reasons I really like this plant is that each bract has a ton of flowers. Now they're not very big, and if you look at these, they're quite tiny. But I think that Anna's hummingbirds tend to like this. You know, there's another salvia that's used here kind of ubiquitously in California, which is Salvia leucantha, and it has small flowers as well. Now there are salvias that do have huge 2 to 3 inch blooms, but I haven't had as much success with those. So this is one of my favorite salvias, and it's been a great addition to the yard. When I was initially building this hummingbird garden and in this corner of the yard, I was looking for something tall because there's a fence back there, and I wanted to kind of cover it. And I had planted Salvia wagneriana, which I kind of think is the princess or queen of salvias. It's just an amazingly beautiful plant, and it has these kind of magenta blooms that come out of these pockets. And I had seen it down in San Diego, fell in love with it, had to have it. But what I found is even here, it was too tender, and it was a little bit slow to bloom. So it would get basically all the flowers about ready to bloom. We would have a little cold snap and it would burn back. And so I think in the 5 years I tried that plant, I got flower once. So I think that kind of leads into the question of zones and what is my zone and something like that. So if you look at here, for example, my zone is zone 9. So that means that I've got a maximum winter coldness of about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And the zone scale was built by the USDA. So it's something that you can go online, you can research it. It'll kind of give you a sense of what plants will make it through your winter and which will not. Now, there's ways to get around that, and using mulches or winter protectant, tarps, things like that. But here in zone 9, things that burn back below 20 degrees, they may come back from the roots, but they also may not. So it kind of limits what you can use. Now, the zones are further broken down into usually A or B. So there's kind of a range of temperatures. And I'm in zone B, really. So that means that it gets down to about, we usually have a couple nights of about 28 Fahrenheit. And so anything below that gets winter damage. Anything that is hardy above that, you don't really see any damage. So back to Wagneriana, which I think is a good example. I pulled it out and I replaced it with Adenophora, and I've had great success. This one will start blooming quite a bit earlier than Wagneriana did. So here we are, the 3rd of December, and this thing's been blooming basically since the middle of November, and I don't think it's going to quit anytime soon. So it's been a really good plant, and I think that if you're here and you're looking at hummingbird gardening, it's kind of a something that as you build your garden and build your yard and figure out when you need plants, it's something really fun to be able to kind of play with plants and see if you can maximize your period for winter bloom. So with that said, I think what we'll do is over the next few months, we'll talk about plants, we'll talk about hummingbirds themselves, and hopefully you get something out of this. All right, thanks.